All right, Bible readers, it's time for another quick Bible study, and it comes from our reading today in Proverbs 15 through 20. So let's jump right in. Proverbs 15:1 says, "A soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger." Yeah, I think this is absolutely true, but it doesn't mean that we should always give a soft answer. So here's an example. And I think just in general, the idea of tough love, sometimes we have to tell things to people that they don't necessarily like, and it can create wrath. But we should just know that a soft answer turns away wrath, but sometimes we can't always give that soft answer. So here's the Apostle Paul, and he's writing in Galatians 4:16 and 17. And he says, "Am I therefore become your enemy because I tell you the truth?" Well, that's the quintessential question right there. He is acknowledging the fact that people have made him an enemy because he told them the truth. And then he goes on to say, "They zealously affect you, but not well. Yea, they would exclude you that you might affect them." So, in other words, if you're a Bible believing Christian telling people the truth, there are people that are going to want to basically throw you out of their life because they don't want to be affected by you. And consequently, they will try their best to affect you to think that the way, to think the way they do. So be aware of that. If you want to know more about this idea of other people zealously affecting you, I have a complete breakdown study of this issue. So you can request that if you want, I'll send it over. Let's jump into Proverbs chapter 16. So 16:2 says, "All the ways of a man are clean in his own eyes, but the Lord weigheth the spirits." I want to focus on this last statement real quick. This idea of weighing the spirits. Now, I think the literal meaning here is that it's not so much like a weighing of like how much does the spirit weigh. It's more of like, testing the spirits and determining which one's more, better or more valuable, or that kind of thing. However, there was a study done a lot of years ago when precision scales were really in their infancy, and what they did was they weighed people. They had them on a bed that was specially built, people that were kind of on their deathbed, so to speak. And so they had a specific weight for them. And at the moment that they died, their weight changed by this really, really infinitesimal amount, but it was measurable and it was consistent. And so, for the first time, probably for the first time in the history of man, we were able to literally weigh the spirit of a man. So, interesting. Not nothing I get all dogmatic about, or that's not the point. It's interesting that the Bible uses this word, and then it took us hundreds, maybe thousands of years to kind of catch up with it from a technological standpoint and understand that spirits probably do have a weight. All right. Proverbs 16:5. So again, the Bible is bringing up pride, and in the United States of America, maybe all over the world, we went through this recent Pride Month, and I've mentioned it a few times, frankly, because I hate all that. And it's worth mentioning, especially when the Bible is specifically talking about pride. So Proverbs 16:5 says, "Everyone that is proud in his heart is an abomination to the Lord. Though hand join in hand, he shall not be unpunished." Okay, there was a whole lot of hand joining hand and pride going on in this country, and God's saying it's an abomination to him. Okay, and pride just keeps coming up. So here it is again in Proverbs 16:18. It says, "Pride goeth before destruction, and an haughty spirit before a fall." And a lot of people will condense this verse and they'll say, "Pride cometh before a fall." Well, it's true, but don't miss the deeper meaning here. Pride goeth before destruction, and then a haughty spirit before a fall. So when we look out in modern culture today, we see a lot of haughty spirits. And if you don't know what haughty means, it's kind of an expression of arrogance. Proverbs 16:25 says, "There is a way that seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death." Yeah, hey, I've been guilty of this. It's real easy to not lean on the Lord and basically lean on our own understanding. And these ways can seem right. But again, Jesus Christ said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no man cometh unto the Father but by him." So let's keep our ways right according to God, not according to ourselves. Chapter 17, Proverbs 17:5 says, "Whoso mocketh the poor reproacheth his maker, And he that is glad at calamities shall not be unpunished. So listen to this last line. And he that is glad at calamities shall not be unpunished. Look, friend, if you've been on social media for any length of time, recently we had that situation with that small submersible with 5 people that went down to attempt to go look at the Titanic, and it was lost. And you probably know the story. But what was interesting is before there was any confirmation of loss of life or any of that, and I know there's all kinds of conspiracies around it now, whatever, but I think at the end of the day, 5 people died. And before we even really knew that or were able to confirm that, social media was flooded with memes, essentially people being glad at calamities, the loss of life, and people making jokes. And it's really a disgrace. I mean, yeah, the people that were on that submersible were multimillionaires, and people have all kinds of money mindset issues, and they think they're bad people or whatever. I think at the end of the day, they were just very wealthy adventurers. But look, God doesn't say he that is glad at calamities toward rich people or bad people. He doesn't qualify it. So I think all these people that had this gladness or this humor toward this event really need to check their spirit. Moving on, Proverbs 17:27. He that hath knowledge spareth his words, and a man of understanding is of an excellent spirit. So this is kind of an interesting thing. Oftentimes I get into discussions with people that are insecure, have never read the Bible. They tend to be very religious kind of folks. They're more like into the rituals instead of the relationship with God. And you ask them a simple question. It could be, 5 to maybe 7 words long, a question, and they'll write you a response that could be a small ebook. And they'll do that over and over and over again. And they just talk in circles. They don't really say anything. And so here again, the Bible says, he that hath knowledge spareth his words. Look, if you know something, then you will have the ability to express it in a minimum number of words in a way that people can understand. Proverbs Chapter 18, verse 1 says, through desire, a man, having separated himself, I want to key in on that, seeketh and intermeddleth with all wisdom. Okay, so this idea of having separated himself, and then that person also seeks and intermeddleth, in other words, kind of intertwines himself with all wisdom. Let's look at 2 Corinthians 6 for a moment here. So this is Paul writing, and he says, and this may be the reference to separating, being separate that you may be more familiar with. But anyway, Paul writes, and what concord hath Christ with Belial? Okay, Belial, maybe you're not familiar with that word. It's a Hebrew word, and it's used to characterize like wickedness in general. So, and what concord hath Christ with Belial? Or what part hath he that believeth with an infidel? Okay, an infidel is somebody that doesn't believe what you believe. Doesn't mean they're necessarily an evil person. It just means they don't believe what you believe. The next verse there in 2 Corinthians 6:16, and what agreement hath the temple of God with idols? For ye are the temple of the living God, as God hath said, I will dwell in them. Okay, again, this is Paul revealing the mysteries. No man was given this information until Paul, and no man after Paul. So God is saying, I will dwell in them, meaning us, and walk in them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And here's what I want to get to in verse 17 of 2 Corinthians 6. Wherefore, come out from among them, meaning the infidels and the idol worshippers and that kind of thing. Come out from among them and be ye separate, saith the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. So this idea of being separate, connected with intermeddling with wisdom, is, I think, worth noting and worth trying to, this is like, if you want to know how to live the Christian life, you got to be separate, and you got to embrace wisdom. Chapter 19 of Proverbs. Okay, so I think this next verse sums up Proverbs, the entire book of Proverbs, in the most concise way. So this is Proverbs 19:8, and it says, he that getteth wisdom loveth his own soul. He that keepeth understanding shall find good. So getting wisdom is equated to loving your own soul. I think that's really powerful. And the book of Proverbs is often called the book of wisdom, but it's not just wisdom, it's knowledge, it's understanding. And it's like how not to be a fool, basically. Proverbs 19:27, cease, my son, to hear the instruction that causeth to err from the words of knowledge. Okay, I think we could safely call this book the words of knowledge. And so the writer of this proverb is saying, cease to hear from the instruction that causeth to err from the words of knowledge. In other words, the Apostle Paul, in his writing, referenced, you have all these, you have like 10,000 instructors, right? But he was belittling that idea. He's, like you don't need all that. You just need the words of knowledge. So things that take you away from God's words and God's knowledge, you need to stop doing that. Okay, last chapter, and we will land this plane. Proverbs 20 says in verse 1, wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging, and whosoever is deceived thereby is not wise. Okay, so look, the Bible never says never drink alcohol. It just doesn't say that. But it also has little to say that is good about alcohol. And so my thing is be careful with it. I drink alcohol once in a while. I've had moments where, I haven't drank for years. I've had moments where I probably drank too much. The point is be super careful with it. In my case, both my parents were alcoholics. The first time I got, so drunk that I fell down, I was 10 years old. And my entire youth was complicated, let's say, by the use of alcohol, drunk on the weekends. I mean, as a kid, it was terrible. Okay. And my parents were checked out. They were lots of times drunk themselves or just gone, and they'd leave lots of alcohol in the house. And so it was just free and easy. And I wasn't supervised correctly. And so I drank a lot. So my youth had much to do with alcohol. And so as an adult, as a mature Christian, I just make sure I control alcohol and that it doesn't control me. Okay. Proverbs 20 verse 6, most men will proclaim everyone his own goodness, but a faithful man who can find. So, wow, I think there's a lot of people running around saying, the idea of their own goodness, but really what we should be focusing on is the goodness of God. So let's wrap this up with a brief discussion of light. So Proverbs 20:27 says, the spirit of man is the candle of the Lord. I find this a really intriguing statement. The spirit of man is the candle of the Lord, searching all the inward parts of the belly, meaning kind of like our gut or our mind or, our innermost parts. Okay. And in James 1:17, God refers to himself as the Father of lights. Let's read this verse and then we'll be done. James 1 verse 17 says, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above and cometh down from the Father of lights, with whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. Okay, so even in my decent lighting here, I still got shadows. You can see a little bit, and there's difference. If I look a certain way, I get glare, and so there's a lot of variableness, and there's shadows, right? But what the Bible says is that the Father of lights, meaning God, there is no variableness, and there's no shadows. So let's leave it there. I hope you got something from this. Please reach out to me if you have any questions or you want to discuss any of this. If I can encourage you in any way, I'd love to do so. And thanks for being here. Have a good Bible reading.